show for all your latest UFC news and rumors. It's Brian Coyle. It's Sean Stanley. It's the TFM Live podcast. And it's now.
Welcome, everybody, to the TFM Live podcast. I am Brian Coyle, joined alongside Sean Stanley. And Sean, we are just a week away from possibly the biggest night in the history of the UFC 194. I'm just worried somebody's gonna get hurt. This is so perfect right now.
I'm still waiting. I'm waiting for the article. I'm still waiting for somebody to come out and be like one of them's injured or somebody on that card. This has been the knock on wood. This so far, I think, has been one of the only cards that hasn't been jinxed by the injury bug yet.
Nobody, the fights are still there. It's great. It's amazing. We still have,
but there's still 7 days.
I know. I'm so scared. But again, it's going to be an incredible week of fights for the UFC next week, and we will preview each fight night. We'll have the UFC Fight Night on Fight Pass on Thursday night, the Rose Namajunas and Paige Van Zandt headline card, which also features the newest pretty boy to join the UFC in Sage North, 19-year-old Super Sage Northcutt, who a lot of people are very high on, and other people think he's a fraud. So we'll get into that next week. Of course, the Ultimate Fighter finale with Frankie Edgar and Chad Mendes fighting on Friday night on Fox Sports 1, and of course UFC 194 headlined by Jose Aldo and Conor McGregor. And
so far,
yes, right now, Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold, Jacare Souza, Yoel Romero also on that. I mean, I could go through every card, but we're not going to. We're going to make this one sort of a quick little thing that we can, and this will lead into our previews in the middle of the week next week. We're recording this on a Saturday night. You'll probably hear it on Monday or tomorrow, depending on when it comes out. So we just want to let people know that. But I do want to talk about a little bit about Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo, because, I mean, who wouldn't want to talk about this fight? This is possibly the biggest fight in the history of all of mixed martial arts. And Sean, the interesting thing is we've been getting a lot of talk from McGregor, and that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is he's ratcheted it up to a level I don't even know existed. He said he would beat up Jesus in a fight. This is insane where McGregor's going to these levels. And I get it. I like McGregor. I mean, I'm Irish. I feel it. It's cool. It's all right. I like it. I love the brashness. I love the cockiness. I love the arrogance.
What's not to love?
But this is... so much is on the line here in this fight for Conor McGregor to become what the UFC clearly wants him to become, and what the sport can elevate to its next level. And I wanted to get into this a little bit. Does the UFC have a rooting interest in this fight, even if they don't want to say it? Because it's good. I think it's going to be a fantastic fight. But does the UFC have a rooting interest? And if Jose Aldo does win, does that take all of the wind out of this buildup that has been McGregor?
I mean, if it's a lopsided win by Aldo, I think so. Yeah. But I mean, if it's a hard fought and it's just they went at it, and and McGregor, there's no backing down, and it just so happens that whatever, I think they can resolve that. But if looking at it from the UFC point of view, Rousey got dominated her last fight. That hurt them. And now if you
I don't think it hurt them, honestly.
I mean, I don't think it's going to hurt them in the long run, but I think it hurt a little bit looking at what you were building. You had almost all your eggs in the Rousey, basket. And then now that's whoa, wait a minute, that's gone. And now if you lose McGregor, I mean, you're looking at it, the last year and a half of what the UFC's been kind of building. And I'm not saying that that there's not other stars, so don't get me wrong there. But they have put these two as almost the face of the UFC right now, definitely on the publicity side. All you see is McGregor and Rousey and things like that. So I think not necessarily, I would say hurt the UFC, like, literally. But I think it would take a little bit of that shine, and it would make Dana White and them probably have to think a little bit harder on a promotional platform that's going to, not put all their eggs in one basket.
It's a really interesting thing to think about, because when you look at Aldo, he's held such a dominance over this entire division since pretty much its inception. I mean, the featherweight division, there's been, one champion. It's been Jose Aldo.
Yeah.
That's it.
And an interim.
Yeah. I mean, and the interim guy being McGregor, who, not beating Aldo it's going to be a thing that hangs over his entire career until he does do it, because this is the guy, from the WEC when they brought in this weight division, he's defended this title against Kenny Florian, against Chad Mendes, against Frankie Edgar. And the way I look at it is, if Conor McGregor wins on Saturday night, the UFC can have him go against pretty much all these different types of matchups, and he can lose. Like that's okay.
Yeah.
If McGregor loses, if he beats Aldo and then loses to Frankie Edgar, it's all right.
Yep.
He'll fight him again.
I agree.
And then that will be an even bigger fight, because Frankie is a big name. Coming into even when I talk to people, he's bigger in the Northeast, obviously, because he's a Jersey guy. But when I say Frankie Edgar's name to people who don't really know him, they're like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of that guy before." Mm-hmm. So that he's got the kind of a drawing power as well. If he fights Cowboy Cerrone or Rafael Dos Anjos at lightweight, which he says he plans to do, and become a 2-belt champion, which let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's win the first one first. But it would completely open up all these avenues of what the UFC can do and promote. And you see McGregor on Jimmy Kimmel talking about chimpanzees and his sparkling suit. He looked, I was waiting for everything to turn on and light up like Chris Jericho's coat. This guy, he's got the personality, obviously.
Oh, 100%.
And I love, whether this is all an act, ratchet it up, whether it's this is who he is, whatever the case may be, he is such a key figure in this whole game of chess that the UFC is trying to play. They're opening up the brand new facility. They have this Reebok deal. They're becoming more mainstream. And by the way, the second championship fight on this card could headline any pay-per-view. I don't know why Weidman keeps getting all of these undercard co-main event slots.
Yeah, he's got to lead the championship matches that are never main events.
I know, it's absolutely insane. Weidman knocks off Rockhold on Saturday too. Just come on, let's get real here. This dude he's got the charismatic attitude. He's in New York. You can book around that. To take an old wrestling term, you can book somebody. He'll get butts in the seats.
Yeah, when you look at all the champions in the UFC right now, there's really not one that doesn't have personality. I think the worst one right now, I guess, would probably be
Dos Anjos.
Yeah, Dos Anjos. If you look at that, the heavyweight, just because of the
Fabricio Verdum.
Yeah, but if you look at their champions, I think the one with the least amount of personality right now would be Holly Holm.
Yeah, because Holly Holm is just, we didn't see it until Rousey, and I'm going to keep saying this because the difference between her last fight and then her Ronda Rousey fight was astronomical.
Oh yeah,
it was incredible. She was a Terminator in her fight against Ronda Rousey.
You wonder which one's her though. Which one is the real Holly Holm? What we saw against Ronda Rousey, or the 2-3 fights before?
And I want to get into that in a little bit too, because Dana White had some thoughts he talked about on ESPN's Mike and Mike, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Just to wrap this all up, if McGregor wins, there's a great article on MMAfighting.com that I was reading from Chuck Mindenhall, and it was basically stating what happens if McGregor wins. Does he become more insufferable? Does he become more tyrannical? Does he become more of this loudmouth? You want to kick this dude in the head like he's going to get medieval on people.
But
And I think that's possibly the best. This is the best possible outcome. And I like Jose Aldo. I really do. I love the Scarface, the quiet, silent assassin mentality. It's great. But is it going to sell as much as the loudmouth, tyrannical villain that everyone wants knocked off the perch? No, of course not.
yeah, but I got a question for you, because now the loudmouth, tyrannical person isn't the person everybody hates either, though.
No.
You know, I mean, that's the funny thing about it is a lot, you know, I mean, and you know, we kind of relate a lot of this to wrestling just because it seems to work out that way, but
they run in the same circles when it comes to promotion-wise. Like,
yeah, they do. And if you look at that, the brash loudmouth now has become not necessarily the face, but that's who the fans are cheering for. Yeah. And so the fans are liking the bad guy now, you know, and so that I don't think it's gonna. When we were just talking about it, when you were just talking about it, it kind of hit me like, I think this is the best case scenario for the UFC is if he wins and it just escalates his head even bigger and he's just talking more and more trash and to the next fight. I mean, it's going to be astronomical because everybody's going to pay to see until he gets beat, to watch, because every time they're going to pay to watch him get beat. I mean, just as you paid to watch Rousey win because you thought that was always going to happen, you're going to pay waiting to see if he's going to get shut up or is that guy going to shut him up. And I think ultimately it's going to be good for the UFC.
Yeah, and Minden Hall has a great opening line here. He says, Conor McGregor is more clubber lying than Rocky Balboa. He's more Chael Sonnen than Ronda Rousey. And I find that interesting because a lot of people don't like Chael Sonnen.
No.
And a lot of people like McGregor.
Yeah, but Sonnen didn't back it up, did he? Sonnen didn't back up his talk.
I mean, Sonnen just kept talking and talking and talking.
He talked himself into fights. He talked himself into fights.
He did.
But I mean, he never really belonged there.
So it's going to be – it's just – the night of fights is going to be great. But what comes after it may be even more interesting to see how this all develops going forward. And we'll get way more into the fight next week, or I mean, it could be when you're listening to this, it could be Tuesday or Wednesday. So that will do. However, I wanted to mention a couple of things. Like I said previously, Dana White was on Mike and Mike in the morning. We have this article live up on the FullMountMMA.com that you can read literally right now if you head on over. And White said this home rematch with Ronda Rousey is going to happen. He said, I think that if we didn't make the rematch, me and Lorenzo Fertitta should probably lose our promoters' licenses if we didn't make the rematch.
I'd agree.
The fight's going to happen. I don't know when, but that's the fight that's going to happen. He said Ronda Rousey has gone undefeated, taking the sport to another level, was beating the best woman in the world in 14 seconds or 30 seconds. So she deserves a rematch. Holm believes that she deserves a rematch, and we'll figure it out. This is obvious to me. I mean, there's so much money in this rematch, it's ridiculous. But the question I want to pose to you, and you may not have the answer to this, will Rousey be the first title defense for Holly Holm?
I mean, I kind of said an article earlier on right afterwards. I think she's got to be the first. I don't think you take a chance on Holm, you know, somebody beating Holm. That's
the worry, right?
Yeah, I think that's got to be a worry. I think Rousey gets the first chance, and I think you do it as soon as possible. I mean, again, I think she's got I haven't seen how much of the suspension she got. I know it was 180 before. I don't know after if she's been cleared. I know she's waiting for a CAT scan and things like that. So if that happens, I think they're looking at like July time frame. I mean, I think as long as everything's there, you get that rematch to her. I just don't think you take that chance of having, you know, who you say, okay, Miesha Tate, and then Miesha Tate beats Holly Holm, and now you got Miesha Tate, Ronda Rousey again, and you lose that Holm Rousey to where, you know, and then you can't bring that back. I mean, Holm is the only one so far that has manhandled Rousey, and I don't think you want to lose that. I don't think you take a chance and lose that. Maybe that's old school booking on my part, but If you never take the lackluster off that champion while she's hot.
And the critical thing here is, I mean, you mentioned the medical suspension. I don't think that'll be a big deal because Rousey supposedly, from everything that I'm hearing, came out unscathed physically, shooken up because, I mean, this whole bubble that was around it popped. But I don't think the medical suspension will be a problem. All of the other things that she's doing could be a huge problem. All the movie filming, all the promotional stuff, all the press, all of this other stuff, which she's still going to do, and she will have a great career probably in it because she's a charismatic fighter. She's a charismatic person. I mean, everything that I've seen, like, she's not going to win any Oscars, but the point being, she's an interesting actor. It's fun to watch her on screen. So the roles that she's going to play are going to, like, she's going to be successful and she's going to keep getting them. So Rousey's got to want, this is going to be on Rousey's terms. She's going to pick her spot. Now, if she wants to wait until August, till September, can you wait that long with Holm? That's the tricky part here. And like you said, this is, we usually talk about the UFC in booking terms, like a loss does not kill you. That doesn't take away the aura of what a fighter is, because everyone loses. Mm-hmm. It's just the way of the game. And it's not like boxing where you want to get a 40-0 guy against another 40-0 guy and put them together. And you have to wait that long because you can just put two good fighters and, wow, that's a good fight. But with this, I think it's different because of the thing we mentioned earlier. We don't know if Holly Holm is what she was against Ronda Rousey. We don't know if that's the consistent fighting level that we'll get from Holly Holm.
Well, not only that, but is somebody else going to game plan differently? I mean, we talked about it before, right after the fight. Rousey stood right in her face of a boxer. I mean, the training camp or whatever you want to put the blame on, it was just a bad game plan. And if you get somebody that game plans better and takes Holm out of her element, I just think you lose too much. Because, and like I said, I mean, you don't lose anything by a loss as far as a fighter goes, but I think you lose that aura of, okay, this is the only person that's beat Ronda Rousey. That is the rematch you want to see. Because, again, Miesha Tate gets in there and handles Holm and wins the belt. Now you got a Miesha Tate, Ronda Rousey 3 with this time Tate as the champion against Rousey. So, I mean, I don't think you take that chance. I don't think you can take that chance. Although I do understand what you're saying, where if she pushes it and says August, September, can you wait that long? I don't think you can, but I think you kind of just feed somebody to Holly Holm to make sure she keeps the belt.
And now the question, I mean, who is that going to be? Because Amanda Nunes could beat Holly Holm. We don't know. We don't know how.
Well, I mean, on any given day, though, anybody could really beat her. That's the whole problem.
Yeah, so because we don't know what she is, and this aura of invincibility that's currently on her, and this America's sweetheart sort of thing that they're building with Holly Holm, which by all occurrences, she seems like a wonderful person. She's done all this media. She seems great. She seems innocent. She doesn't seem eaten up and spit out by this media machine because she's been sheltered. I mean, the preacher's daughter, her nickname, but like this whole. It's funny because all of this rests in the hands of Ronda Rousey, and when does she want to come back? And because she came about this all wrong, and she fought all wrong.
Yep.
And we don't know. Holly Holm could be the greatest women's mixed martial artist in history, or she can be somebody who had the perfect game plan, who was feeling good, who had a weak champion, a tired champion, a dumb coaching move, and it all worked together. We don't know. And until this rematch happens, we won't know the answer to those questions. So the UFC has to be very careful. And if Rousey's willing to, if they're willing to hold her off, then you're fine. But if Rousey wants to wait, then they enter a little bit of a danger zone when it comes to that. But Ronda Rousey, she didn't just lose in UFC 193. She also, kind of made it a little awkward. UFC 2 is coming out in the spring. She's on the cover. That was announced. And then she loses, which, it sucks. another example of the UFC curse, or originally the Madden curse, which everyone knows about, but there's a UFC curse regarding John Jones and Alexander Gustafsson, who both,
I think they're doing this.
Some trouble.
The second person on the cover, I think they're doing correctly.
Yes,
at least this way, you can't really say it's
literally.
Cheats.
It's like you were reading my mind. Segueing into our next topic, Jose Aldo, Conor McGregor, winner to be named the EA Sports UFC 2 cover athlete.
Because, the championship means nothing, right? Because you're going to be on the cover if you win. Hey, yes. who cares about the belt? Or the bragging rights. Get the cover.
Immortalized on the cover of EA Sports UFC 2. Jordan Rousey will either be Conor McGregor or Jose Aldo. Whoever wins. I just thought this was a nice little story to break up the seriousness.
I was just laughing when I first saw it. I'm like, at least they're going to say it can't be a curse anymore. Unless they go out the next fight and get ruined. Now,
MMAmania.com of SB Nation reports that in case of a draw or an injury, because, we still got 7 days left.
That's true.
EA would choose a cover athlete at its discretion. So
Sage Northcutt.
The way they're talking about Sage Northcutt, you never know with this kid. I think he destroys Cody Pfister on Thursday, but that's a whole other story that we'll save for next week. So it's very, very interesting things coming out. Again, we'll have a full preview of all of next weekend's festivities. I am so excited for all the fights next week. I am going to be rushing home from my real job to watch all of these fights. And I will definitely be live tweeting those fights. So you can follow me at VCoyle11. You can follow Sean at SS Sports Talk. I don't know if he'll do this. Do you live tweet during the fight?
Not all the time, because sometimes I'm not able to catch the whole fight. I try, and then I catch myself sometimes getting so involved in the fight or trying to analyze it that I forget that I two live tweets. So I'll forget to hit send. I'll have a tweet there, and then by the time it's too late. There's 20 tweets about the same thing. So I'm like, all right, let me try to catch the next one.
Yes, but I recommend to everybody listening out there, even if you mysteriously caught us and you're not an MMA fan, which if you aren't, welcome. It's nice to have you. Watch this fight. Get this fight with your friends. This is a party fight. This is a moment where this can be an event on Saturday, and we're not just carrying the water for the UFC here. I am legitimately excited about all of next week.
Oh no, yes, definitely.
Because even though we're media, we cover this sport because we're passionate about it, and anybody who isn't doing it right, because then you're not going to get the true kind of viewpoints and the true analysis that you want. If this is just a job to some people, good for them. But this is our passion. This isn't our, quote unquote real jobs. This isn't what we do for a living. But we love this, and we do it for you guys, and we do it because we want to. We enjoy this. So I recommend. Go out there. Even if you haven't really watched UFC fights before, this is something that can't miss. It's absolutely can't miss. And there's more developing stuff all across the UFC. Let's get to a couple more stories. Dana White, he went to the ESPN car wash, so it's literally he's starting off all of our stuff this week, Sean. And he said that CM Punk, our good friend, former WWE wrestler, a sports entertainer, champion, I think he's also a comic book writer at this point, and special guest on AMC's Talking Dead several times, and I've seen it. He's pretty much been everywhere except the UFC Octagon since he's been announced as a fighter for the UFC. Mm-hmm. He did suffer a shoulder injury earlier, I think in November or October, but he seems like that injury did not wear him down, and he'll be able to fight next year. And his opponent will reportedly come from Dana White's Looking for a Fight, which is a YouTube series that the UFC is putting out with White going around and looking for fighters all across the country. It's a web series that features Dana White and Matt Serra traveling around the country, attending regional events, scout shows. The first episode, they discovered Sage Northcutt. So this is, I mean, when we heard Punk was gonna ranging from notable names to a 1-0, 2-0 guy for Punk. What do you think of this move by the UFC? Because I think it's a brilliant marketing scheme, at least from that standpoint.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, I think that's who we thought kind of who they'd have to put him in there with, somebody of his, I wouldn't say, because even that person probably has more experience as far as an octagon or fighting experience than what CM Punk will have. But I think it's better than having possibly somebody that's already under contract to fight CM Punk. And I mean, look, we've talked about it before on this podcast, on TFM Live podcast. The clock is ticking on CM Punk, and I mean, I hope he does fight. But I mean, each time it just seems like it's what maybe now. What's his career going to be? Maybe 2 or 3 fights.
I mean, it's not. He's 37.
That's what I mean.
I love Punk.
I do too. I think he's great. I see him maybe doing. I'm thinking maybe they're hoping he's going to do good in the octagon, and they transition him into broadcasting.
Because I mean, the guy is one of the best talkers in the history of sports entertainment, whatever you want to do. And I mean, he had no athletic background prior to this.
No,
so we have no idea what he's
conditioning. He used to condition with the Gracies. That's how he used to stay in shape. He'd go down to Gracie's gym and roll around and just do stuff. I mean, he's got the, I guess whatever you want to call it, the rolling around, the basics, the fundamentals of it, but he's never been punched in the face for it. He's never been, he's never had somebody go out there and try to kill. I mean, not saying he hasn't been in a fight, in the streets or something, but it's a totally different environment when you're in there, and it's something he's going to have to get used to real quick. And being 37 years old, it's not that simple.
No, it's not. And Father Time is undefeated. It's not going to turn out well for Punk down the line if age catches up to him. And it's going to happen. If Punk fights these young fighters that are being bred to be MMA fighters, this is the third time we've talked about Sage Northcutt, but that kid's literally being bred to be an MMA fighter. He's 19 years old.
Well, there was a story, I think, and I believe it was Dana White said it himself. He's like, the first time they saw Sage Northcutt, they're like, oh, look at this pretty boy. Yeah. And then he said, then we went out there and we watched him. We're like, whoa, okay.
He's going to kill somebody.
Yeah, they thought he was good. They thought he was just a pretty face. They're like, look at this pretty boy here. Oh, this is going to be great to watch him get beat up. And he went out there and they said, like, he punished the guy so bad. They're like, we got to offer this guy something. He just beat the crap out of this guy. And Dana White was like, that's the first guy I've ever had to, backtrack on.
Yeah, it's nuts. But I really hope Punk gets a fight soon, so he can fight more than once next year, maybe 3 times if it's working out good for him. So we'll see. It's a great marketing opportunity and a media attention grab by the UFC. I don't think there's a downside to signing Punk. A lot of people said he would be tainting the purity of the sport. Well, he wouldn't taint the purity of the sport if he got knocked out the first time around.
Well, not that, but I think it'd be more taint the purity of the sport if they just sign him and put him in there 3 months later.
Yeah,
he's been working for almost a year and a half now. I mean, it's not like they just picked him up and for publicity said, "Oh, look, WWE just fired him or he just quit. Let's bring him out here 3 months later and throw him in there." They didn't do that. So, yeah.
It's not like this company's putting together, I don't know, 2 dudes who got popular off of YouTube for backyard fightings, and one of the dudes was a former bodyguard of the other dude or something like that. But I don't know.
Yeah, they're friends, and then now they're not friends because one called out the other and the other didn't. And then one went and did a movie that was not actual or whatever. And
one by a terrific director, Billy Corbin, who did Dogfight, that you can now see on Netflix, about one of the guys. But I digress, and that's that standpoint. But in all seriousness here,
and then the main event's even better. I'm sorry, I'm done now too.
In all seriousness, I hope Punk fights soon. Because I want to see this guy.
I agree 100%.
One guy who might not be fighting anymore, if Dana White is to be believed, he was talking a lot, which is good. I like Dana White. he's done a terrific job at promoting the UFC from what it once was to what it now is.
Hey,
you got to give the guy credit, whether you like him or not.
Did you hear him with Levitard?
Oh, he's fantastic.
Did you hear what he said though about Rousey and Liddell?
Well, tell the audience if they haven't.
Oh, yeah, I mean, he was kind of on there, and they're like, you looked like really hurt when Ronda Rousey got beat, and they're like, was that because you saw your UFC, crumbling? And basically, what he said was, no, there's only 2 or 3 people that he's really close to in the UFC, and when he saw Rousey getting handled the way she was, he was truly hurt, like watching a friend get beat up.
Well, yeah.
And he said there's only 3 people in UFC that more he said, that he cares about, but he's like Matt Hughes' family at Christmas time comes to his house, Chuck Liddell and Ronda Rousey. And it was like watching, he goes, there's many times when I watched Liddell get, knocked out, and I was like crushed, and he's like, I was crushed personally by it, but not for the reasons that everybody's thinking. It's for, I saw my friend just get handled in the ring in the octagon.
So I mean, this guy he cares about fighters.
Yep.
And he apparently believes that George St. Pierre, remember when I got all excited and I thought GSP was maybe coming back, and now it kind of doesn't seem like GSP is going to come back after Freddie Roach said about the 6-week training camp. Mm-hmm. Dana White had some thoughts to say about that. He talked to Michael Landsberg of Off the Record, saying, listen, I like George St. Pierre. I respect him. He was never anything but class when he fought for us. Absolute class act. He took Canada to a whole other level in the sports and everything else, but he can talk about why he isn't here, why he isn't doing this, and maybe he'll take 6 weeks. George St. Pierre has lost the urge to fight, and that's the reality. He lost the urge to fight, and it happens. There's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing negative. It wasn't because of anything that happened with me or Lorenzo Fertitta or anything within the sport. He lost the urge to fight, period. End of story. But GSP has denied this claim, telling Ariel Helwani, who does a great job on MMA fighting in Fox Sports 1, saying there are different ways of being hungry. I can still be hungry. You can be more hungry than people who have nothing. I have so much to lose because of my pride. My pride is my most important strength. Very proud person. I would never go back and make a fool of myself and be humiliated because I'm a very proud guy. I have so much to lose. That's what's going to make me hungry and be willing to do better than anyone. There's different ways to be hungry. So all I got out of that was GSP should eat something, because that was a very good filibuster of the fact that GSP doesn't seem like he's itching towards a comeback anytime soon.
I think reality hit him in the face. I think he went in there, he did some of the training and was like, you know what, maybe I have the passion to do it, but I don't think that I have the ability to do it at the level that I want to be able to do it at. And he doesn't want to be one of those guys that goes in there and is a stepping stone to every young up-and-comer. And, I think he's realized that, and I think reality hit him in the face.
I think the Kickboxer remake check clear, and he was like, I can do this and without getting my face beaten.
No, but then he can go coach, too, as well. We've seen him in the corners of some fighters now too, so why not pass that on and get into that realm of things, because I'm sure he could help some people's careers.
I mean, I think with GSP, he's been terrific, but at this point, what is the motivation for him to get back into the octagon? Is there anybody that he needs to beat? Is there anybody he needs to go out and defeat to really close the book on his career when you go down the line?
No, nobody. And then the fact that what is out there? You start looking at some of these guys that are still fighting, and I love them to death. Hendo, I love him to death, but man, sometimes it's like, look, the only thing you're waiting for is this: is he going to land an H-bomb, or is he going to get knocked out? Because that's what is going to happen in that fight.
Because when you go down the line, GSP's 2 losses are to Matt Hughes and Matt Serra.
Yeah.
And those guys ain't fighting no more.
No. So, there's no reason for him to come back. And I think, I think he got in the octagon, sat there, doing his thing, went home, was like, you know what? I don't have what I had before, and I don't want to step back in and be that guy that, came back in and lost and was a stepping stone to every up and comer because now they want to push this guy and now they put him against me to make a name for themselves. And he doesn't, like you said, he doesn't need a check either. So I mean that's not the motivation, you know what I'm saying? And you can say what you want about Henderson, he loves to fight and this is what he does, but I'm sure his checks are pretty good that he's getting right now from the UFC as well.
Yeah. So I mean, if GSP comes back, it's great. If not, I mean, there's plenty of young up-and-coming names, especially in the welterweight division, or, an older up-and-coming name, CF Punk fights anytime soon, that, we could get this done. There were rumors of, by the way, I read something, I wanted to clear this up. I saw on a couple of websites that Robbie Lawler, once again, was injured, and then his fight in January was in doubt. There were contrary reports saying that Lawler's camp has no idea where that report came from. So before people get worried that the Lawler-Carlos Condit fight scheduled for January will not happen, it appears there's some misinformation on both sides. So we're going to wait on that to see what develops in that scenario. But, I mean, the welterweight division is in good hands with Rory McDonald, Tyron Woodley, Carlos Condit, Robbie Lawler. I mean, yeah. I can't wait to see Lawler and Condit fight in January. A couple of stories I wanted to get to quick. Like you mentioned before, Conor McGregor apparently wants 2 UFC belts in his next 2 fights. So he wants to win the featherweight belt and then wants to fight the winner of Rafael Dos Anjos and Cowboy Cerrone, which, no offense to Dos Anjos, a Cowboy versus McGregor would be the greatest build-up to a UFC fight because no one would shut up for 6
exactly. The press conference would go forever.
Oh my goodness, that would be absolutely fantastic. McGregor has said a lot of stuff. I mean, a lot of stuff over the past couple of weeks. Just a sampling. You can see on FullMountMMA.com right now. He said that this is during his press conference. He's going to knock out Jose Aldo, and then I will face the winner of the lightweight belt, which takes place a week after. Then I will fight for that, so then I will be a 2-way world champion. He said whenever he hits Jose Aldo, he's going to sleep. He doesn't see him answering the bell for the second round. I mean, he's come out and said that Aldo's not even going to show up. It's just...
I have a question, though, on this.
Sure.
As much as he's talking, what if he nails Aldo with, like, the best shot, and Aldo just looks at him and smiles?
It will be one of the most...
And you see McGregor just kind of go blank, like, whoa. I just, because sometimes I think that's what happens with some of these game plans. I think that's what happened with Rousey. Yeah. They go in thinking that, I'm going to be able to do what I want to do and still my will, and then when it doesn't happen, they're like, oh, wait, I don't have a plan B. Wait, that didn't work. Uh-oh. Now what? And
of all this is where I kind of disagree on it. I don't like I said, we can't go too much into this.
Yeah, we got time.
But McGregor will talk all of this, for lack of a better word, crap, about all this, and he'll say he'll knock him out and go to sleep, and he'll go down in 2, he'll go down in 1, whatever. When you watch Conor McGregor fight, it is a very tactical, a very precision-based approach. He starts off every round with that weird kick out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. He measures his opponent. His hands are down, which is so dangerous. I don't get it, but I mean, it works. He's so unorthodox, and he kind of just measures his opponent. I don't see him flying out like Ronda Rousey did against Holly Holm, because he can manufacture hate out of anybody. It seems like he got Mendez, who's typically not a dude who talks, to get off of his game. Now, the one I would worry about is Aldo coming after McGregor, wanting to literally kill him, because I mean, all the stuff that Aldo's had to endure from McGregor is enough to begin with. So we'll see. I think. Do you believe McGregor is the more likely of the guys to lose his game plan? Because I think it's Aldo easily.
Well, I don't know necessarily that he's going to lose his game plan, but I mean, McGregor, I think, has a better camp than what Rousey had. But you could see when Rousey could not get, or when she took her over on the throw, and then was working it, and then Holm got out of it, it was just like she was totally lost after that. And like you said, I don't think McGregor's as non-tactical as what Rousey is, and I think his camp is so much better to where it won't happen.
Absolutely.
But I mean, to me, like you hear all these guys talking, and it happens all the time, like in street fights. And if you watch any of the stuff on YouTube or anything like that, the guy's a big talker and he nails the guy, and then the guy just looks at him, kind of smiles, and he's like, "Wait a minute, I just do my best shot, and this guy's smiling at me." And it's just kind of like that thing where it's like, wait a minute, okay, all right, now I got to look somewhere else. And I just wonder if anything like that showmanship does happen, is it going to be like, oh, wait a minute, now I got to hit him harder? And is he going to force the issue and fall into something else from Aldo? There's just so much, I think, games inside the game between these two that, I mean, I think everybody's like, oh, McGregor's in Aldo's head, but who knows for sure?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complete mystery going up to what we see. And when you looked at Mendez coming into the McGregor thing, when he hit Conor like with some big heavy punches, and McGregor just smiled with blood coming out of his mouth and blood dripping down his face, and he cut him open and he came at him harder. Sometimes you don't want to motivate guys to do that, because they get even better. It's like they see their own blood, they're like a bull, and they charge.
Yeah, usually it's two ways when you see or taste your own blood. You either crumble or you charge.
Yeah, and it will be very interesting because there will be blood in that main event. That's for sure. But I'm very excited. It should be a very interesting night. A couple other news items I wanted to hit here. Michael Bisping and Gegard Mousasi added to the UFC London card in February. So Bisping finally gets to come back to the octagon. He was scheduled to fight Robert Whittaker, who definitely made a name for himself, in my opinion, against Uriah Hall at UFC 193. He'll get Gegard Mousasi, who, linked again here, was knocked out by Uriah Hall. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a good kind of fight. It's not obviously what Bisping would want, I think, at this point.
But does he deserves better right now?
I think Bisping at this point wants to kind of make that one last charge for the middleweight title, because, I mean, the way he's been fighting, he's been good enough to kind of hang with the top guys. And middleweight is so loaded, as we know, and there was rumors of him getting the Anderson Silva fight, which I thought would have been great. Now it's going to be Belfort and Silva, from all indications, and I would not be shocked if this is where Bisping wants to fight immediately after this and kind of get somebody higher up in the range. But it'll be a good fight. It's two veterans. I mean, Bisping was the original Conor McGregor that came to European talkers.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good. I mean, the UFC London, it's sold out reportedly like less than an hour. So and this
I
is
think they said
event.
the official time was 27 minutes.
Yeah, there you go. So, and this has not been mentioned as the main event. So I think there's a lot more, a couple of more higher profile fights coming to this card in London. And also the UFC announced its return to Pittsburgh early next year. The UFC will be returning to Pittsburgh in February. There's only one bout scheduled for the card. Derek Brunson and Rowan Carneiro will be fighting in that. We don't know anything else. The last time they were there, Czech Congo finished Pat Barry by first round knockout in the main event. So we've come a long way for the first time in almost 5 years that the UFC will be returning to the Steel City. So I can guarantee Czech Congo will not be fighting on that card for the UFC. And then, Sean, I wanted to get your take. Have we heard who Fedor is fighting yet on New Year's Eve? Have we figured that out yet?
I haven't heard. I think they're going to draw names on Christmas Eve as a Christmas present to somebody.
Okay, so it's going to be like, it's basically the Willy Wonka effect. So a bunch of fighters will get presents, and then one of them will open it up.
They're going to pull that old wrestling trick. It's just going to be a shadow of somebody until he's introduced.
Oh, is it going to be? Is that one creepy dude who whispers into everybody's ear, and Willy Wonka going to be there and telling them what, they're coming in and they have to fight him?
Oh yeah, it's going to be something crazy. You know how they're going to pull it off. They're going to do something.
It's amazing.
I mean, it's just. I mean, what? It's just. I don't understand it, man. I don't get it.
I don't get it.
You have one of the best fighters ever, and you still don't know who's going to fight him, and you're, what, 28 days away?
Yeah, this is not good. I mean, as much as we want to make fun of Fedor for, I think Reebok may have had a worse week writing Anderson Aldo.
Goodness, yeah.
Anderson Aldo the Spider on his shirt.
It was a misprint error, and no kidding.
You can see that on our latest edition of Punchline, which is on thefulmountmma.com.
Good catch,
right
guys.
now.
Wow.
Dude, like, what? Like, how would they not realize? Like, this has been the worst rollout.
Oh, my goodness. What's next?
How did they just not pay attention?
He's going to come out at Conor McGregor.
Like, what are they doing?
I don't see how they did. And did you hear the payouts of the last one? It was like so minimal, man. I don't understand. I mean, I understand it goes by the amount of fights, and on the card there wasn't that many like veterans, but still, I mean, I think the whole payout was like $45,000 from Reebok. I mean, that's just for a whole card. I mean, that's crazy.
I mean, it just absolutely, it doesn't make any sense. Like, Reebok has shown as much energy and much enthusiasm about this idea as one would be going to the dentist for a root canal. Like, you've got this budding sport. You can't get names right of the best fighters around. What are you doing? Like, why? Like, it's amazing. It's really, really amazing. I mean, on that note, you got anything else you want to talk about? Because I want to get in and out of here before our big preview show next week.
Nah, just gearing up for that big preview show. Make sure you check that out at the Full Mount and fullmount.com.
Mm-hmm.
Fullmountmma.com, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So many good fights that we'll preview it all next week. I may have an article on Conor McGregor as well, so stay tuned for that, and what this whole act or not act. I mean, I really don't know with McGregor, which is the best way to do it, right? Like the guy is.
I think it's his personality. I think, maybe he turns it up a little bit more for the cameras and everything, but I think that's truly him. I mean, that's what they say, the best aspect and the person that makes it the realest is when it's a real extension of yourself, just amplified up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, if me or you were in the position that he would be in, wouldn't you ratchet it up to 11? Like he said on Jimmy Kimmel, he's like, I've got this life. Why not live it to the fullest? And I get it.
Yeah, I mean, because you never know when it's going to end, man. You've seen how quickly this UFC, careers can come tumbling down, man.
Yes, and just stay away from any exotic animals, please, Connor, because you don't need a tiger. You don't need a chimpanzee. You don't need any of this. Get the fancy suits. Get the fancy cars. Do the fancy things. You don't need an exotic pet.
Hang out with the fancy people if you need something like that.
Yeah, hang out with the fancy people. There's ways to spend money.
You know what, Connor? Give me a call. I'll hang out with you, buddy.
Yeah, we got you. It's all right. We can show you a good time. I mean, I'm close to New York City. You're close to Miami. You're in Miami. What am I
We'll take you to South Beach, baby.
Yeah, so good. I mean, it's a little bit nicer in one part of the country than the other. So, it's all right.
Not today. We're in flood warnings down here, buddy.
Well, I mean, it's tourist time in New York City.
We're getting our winter wonderland this week.
It's my winter hell on the train every day. But in any case, sorry, I spaced out into the nothingness and despair that is my average commute on a daily basis. But anyway, so that's been the latest edition of TFM Live. I want to thank you guys for listening. Like we mentioned, we will be previewing a whole bunch of fights through next week's podcast and on the site, which you can check out only on thefullmountmma.com. You can follow us on Twitter at thefullmount. At bcoyle11 for me. If you want to hear me tweet about the NFL and my fantasy team, which will hopefully win tomorrow. It's all counting on you, Big Ben. You can do it. I trust you. Or I am also in agreement with Dabo Sweeney on his idiot punter, which you can also tweet at me about, because that was the dumbest fake punt that I've ever seen in that game. And you can tweet at Sean for more measured and concrete and probably smarter and softer advice. You can do that too at SS Sports Talk. So, Sean, thank you for joining me as you do and putting up with my
Thank you for having me after such commuting experiences that you have. I appreciate
I'm traumatized.
you letting me tag along.
It's like one of these Japanese bullet trains at this point on NJ Transit. They don't work. They break down. There's too many people. Oh, that's you got to get out to Vegas for one of these fights.
Yes, I agree.
So many less people. So thank you guys for listening. Next week, see plenty of previews of UFC Fight Night on Thursday, the UFC Fight Night on Friday, and UFC 194 live from Las Vegas. Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo for the unified UFC featherweight title. Thank you guys for listening. We'll be back next week.
The TFM Live Podcast is brought to you by The Full Mount, MMA.com. Check us out on Twitter at The Full Mount.